welcome to another episode of Cooking with Steve. Today we will be making a hot and sour soup. It's one of my favorite soups actually to start off a meal, or because of all the different ingredients that we're using in the soup, it could be a meal on its own. So the ingredients that we will be using today will be 1 pound of tofu that I've cut up into little cubes or rectangles like this. We also have about 16 ounces of bamboo shoots. We will be using 4 eggs. And we have about 2 chicken breasts here. And the chicken breasts have been sliced up into julienne strips so that once it's cooked, you'll see the nice strands in the soup. We also have some green onions for garnishing at the end. And we also have a number of different ingredients that come dried. So one that you're probably most familiar with is shiitake mushroom. The shiitake mushroom comes dried, and you reconstitute it overnight, or if you want to do it a little faster, you could always put it in hot water. We also have Woodear mushroom. Now this Woodear mushroom comes in a package like this. And you basically soak that for a few hours in cold water, and it becomes pliable that then you can cut. The other one is a lily bud flower, and they are like this. Now once they've been reconstituted in water for a few hours, the lily buds flowers will now look like this. On here you'll see that there's one end, it's the actual flower, if you look at it closely. And on the other end is the stem. And on the stem, sometimes there's a little piece, a woody piece on it. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut that off. And then take this lily bud and pull it apart. And then that's how we're gonna use it in the soup. And so I start off with about 40 grams of lily bud, and once I've reconstituted and pulled them apart, this is what we have. The other is the Woodear mushroom. The Woodear mushroom, once it's reconstituted, starts from this and then it becomes this big after it soaks it in the water for a couple hours. Now on here you'll see that sometimes there's a woody piece, and this is the part that was attached when it was growing. So it's a little bit hard to eat, so what we're going to do is we're just going to cut that off. And then we're going to take it and roll it. It's almost like a chiffonade. And we're going to cut it into small strips. All right. So we started off with about 50 grams. And after we reconstituted it, we end up with a pretty big bowl like this. Now the soup that I'm making is actually quite a big one. So if you want to make a lesser quantity, by all means, scale all the ingredients that I'm talking about today. I like to make a bigger one because it stores well, and once you start eating it, you can't stop. So it's a nice soup. So the shiitake mushroom, after we reconstitute it, we're going to cut it into fine slices like this, and there we go. So now we started off with about 10 mushrooms that we soaked in water overnight, and then we cut them up, and here we go. So those are all the ingredients for our soup today. If you want to make this vegetarian, you could always use a vegetarian broth, as well as omit the chicken and the eggs, and you can put in more tofu, or if you prefer more bamboo shoots, you can put in more bamboo shoots. So again, all the measurements here are just rough order of measure. This is cooking, not baking, and so you could decide to use more or less any ingredients that you want and experiment, give it a try. The bone broth that I made was using chicken bones, and I put that in my Instant Pot with some water, and I put that under high pressure for about an hour and a half, and then that results in a beautiful chicken broth that we'll be using today. So let's head over to the stove and get to cooking. All right, so we have our soup boiling. First thing we're going to do is we are going to add our chicken in. We're going to put that in and stir it quickly so that it all separates, otherwise you get a big clump of chicken. There we go, chicken in. Alright. Then we're just going to stir it around so the chicken separates. Turn up the heat a little bit. Alright. Now the chicken is nicely separated. It's looking good. Okay. Let's put in our lily flowers. And then we're going to be putting in our bamboo shoots. Chinese mushrooms, Shiitake mushrooms, our Woodear mushrooms. As you can see, the soup is starting to get pretty hearty right now with all this chicken and vegetables. And then we're going to put in our tofu. And we're going to bring this to a boil. And then once it boils, we will thicken it with a cornstarch slurry. We have a teaspoon of sesame oil. And again, these are all rough measurements. If you prefer to have it a little bit saltier, put more salt. I've already put in a tablespoon and a half of salt already. And then we're going to put in some soy sauce. Put in a couple tablespoons. All right. And then we also have a dark soy. Dark soy. I'm going to put in a couple of tablespoons of that. The dark soy is not very salty. It just gives it more or less gives it color. So we'll give this a quick stir, and if we think it should be darker, then we can add more dark soy. All right. How's that look? That looks pretty good. Maybe we'll put a little bit more. So again, feel free to adjust these measurements. And then we are going to be putting in a heaping teaspoon of white pepper. So this is what gives it the spicy kick of the soup. There's no chili peppers or anything like that, or Szechuan peppercorn. It's just white pepper. And amazingly, it gives it a very, very spicy taste. We're going to be putting in some vinegar. So I'm using white vinegar. There's also a Chinese dark vinegar that you could use. It's not quite as sour as the white vinegar. We're going to be putting in 3 tablespoons. And what we're going to do is, after this comes to a boil, we'll give it a taste. And we will adjust accordingly. Okay. Oh, I forgot one thing. Some sugar. So we'll put about half a teaspoon of sugar in there. All right. And now we just wait for it to boil. We're going to let it boil for about 10 minutes. Okay, so now it's time to thicken our soup. So what I have here is I have it's a cornstarch slurry that I put together. I have about 11 tablespoons of cornstarch with about 2 times the water, so 22 tablespoons of water. Okay, so we'll pour this into the soup, and once we reach the desired thickness of the soup, we can stop adding our cornstarch. So we'll just drizzle in slowly while stirring, and the soup will start to thicken. You can see that the soup is starting to thicken. So we may not use all this cornstarch. If we don't, you could always use it to make thickened sauces for your other dishes. Keeps well in the fridge. I think it could be a little bit thicker, so we'll just add some more. All right, next step is to add our egg. We're going to turn it off. We're going to scramble our egg. What we're going to do is we're just going to take it spoonful at a time, and we're going to layer it in like ribbons. You don't want this to be boiling when you're doing this, because then all the egg is just going to turn into mush. So you see the egg is starting to form. All right, so all the egg is in. We'll just give it a gentle stir. You see that the egg is all nicely ribboned. Bring it back to a little boil. All right, I think we're done. The egg right now is floating at the top, but eventually it will go down to the bottom. All right, let's give this a taste. Look at all those hearty ingredients in here. Can't wait to try this. All right, so we're gonna garnish it with a little bit of green onion. Get our spoon. Ooh, it's pretty hot. All right. Oh. Okay. Nice and spicy from the white pepper. Sour, very hearty with all these ingredients. Different kinds of mushrooms, shiitake, Woodear, tofu, egg. It's a meal in itself. Oh, I need to take another taste of this. Give it a try. Let me know how it goes. Thank you for joining us on Cooking with Steve. Look forward to seeing you again.